What is up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast. And as usual, I'm your favorite Virgo host, Shakita Johnson. And happy Wednesday, y'all. Happy February and happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. Just a month of fabulousness and happiness. All right. So again, thank you guys for joining me back for another episode. Hope everyone is doing well and taking care of yourself. Your girl was a little under the weather, but it's okay. I'm getting better. Just keep me in your thoughts and prayers. But I'm sending you guys lots of love and positive energy as well. So today, as we have entered a new month, we're going to keep on healing, empowering, and uplifting. So, with this conversation today, I hope that it truly uplifts someone as we have another lovely guest coming today, and the conversation is around mental health. She is a board certified psychiatrist. Her name is Dr. Bolanle. She is also the CEO and founder of Bright Minds MD, that is located in New Jersey. So, if you're someone that is seeking mental health support, and live in the New Jersey or New York area, please by all means reach out to her and her team, as all of their information will be in the description box below. Her treatment recommendations and counseling is through a holistic approach, as she encourages people to live a more meaningful life and focusing on things such as relationship, conquering depression, anxiety, and many more factors that contribute to a person's mental health. Overall, she's a great person. She comes with a lot of tools and resources under her belt. And I truly hope that this conversation inspires or empowers someone to just focus on their mental health, or if you're someone that needs the assistance and support, to seek it. Okay. So let's get to this conversation, and I will see you guys at the end. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining me back for another lovely episode. This week, I have another lovely guest joining me. I'm so excited and honored to have her on my platform. I have Dr. Bolanle. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing very well, Miss Chiquita. Good to chat with you this morning.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me and for coming today to offer some insight around mental health, not only to me, but also to my supporters. I appreciate it, like I told you before we went on. So to keep things flowing, we're going to do our mental health checks because we got to check in with ourselves. So
Oh,
on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being that you're feeling good, you're in a really good space. 1 being you're not feeling the best, you have some room for porn, but you're managing. How would you rate your mental health today?
Today I have to tell you, I woke up somewhere around a 3.
Ooh.
Um, but after, I think I just had a bit of like a little ride, which always helps me. So I'm closer to a 4 now. I'm in much better space than like 2 hours ago when I just got up.
Yes, girl, you've been up early, but I understand. I understand. But I'm glad that it went from this to that. That's all that matters. Today, me right now, I'm at a 5. I'm fiving it out. And when I get, yes, that's how I feel when I get in these zones of 5, because it's been a long time coming, you know. It's a lot of things going on around us, and sometimes it's so easy to get sucked into all that.
Absolutely.
So me being at a 5 is letting me know that I'm managing well, and I will continue to do these mental health checks so that everyone that's listening and other people around me will take the time to really take time to yourselves. I know we live a busy life. People have kids and families and jobs and things, but it's so important to take a couple minutes a day to really check in to make sure that you're doing okay.
I love
Because
it.
if
I
you're
love
not,
it.
you do other people and yourself a disservice, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really so love it. When you were saying that, I was like, oh my God, people are going to expect that because I work in the mental health field. I'm at a 5 all the time. And I
Mhm.
struggled with answering that question right away because I'm like, but I don't want to make that up because sometimes everybody wakes up at a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. And even throughout the course of a day, we wax and wane, right? We go up and down sometimes in how we're feeling, depending on what's happening in our environment, but also how we're responding to it.
Mhm.
So I love that you opened up with that because it forced me immediately to to be open and
Yeah.
honest about how I was feeling this morning, but also to show real quickly that we can also play a role in changing that. And I don't want to distract you
No,
from the
no, no,
agenda, so
no.
please go ahead.
No, no, no. I love that. And I also love the fact that you said sometimes we can wake up at a 2, and throughout the day it fluctuates, you know?
Mhm.
And I think for me, I feel bad sometimes when I feel good and then I'm starting to feel down and not know why. And I have come to terms to understand that like we're human, we all go through human experiences and feelings, you know. And my therapist has definitely growth that in my head, like, Shakita, it's okay, you're human, you're going to feel these things, you're not always going to be a 5 or 10. And in the moments where you don't feel the best, you can sit in those feelings a little bit and try to figure out what's going on.
Absolutely.
You know,
Self-check-in.
yes, and that leads us to our lovely conversation. Prior to this, I've read your intro coming into this episode, but can you please tell everyone, you know, a little bit more about yourself and how you got into the field of psychiatry?
Of course. Sure. I'll introduce myself. My name is Dr. Bolanle Akinronbi, and psychiatrist and founder at Bright Minds MD, a private psychiatry practice serving New Jersey and New York with virtual access throughout both states and taking insurance, where we help people with depression and anxiety and other mental health disorders feel better with minimal medications and self-help and wellness practices. That's sort of kind of me in a nutshell. I have other roles I play in my life as well, you know, in my personal life. How did I get into psychiatry? I always like to say I felt psychiatry called me, or I've described it as a calling. I've described it as a falling into, it was not on my radar until I did the rotation where we're required to all experience different specialties in medical school before we pick our final destinations. We're expected all to spend some time in each of the specialties to kind of fine-tune our thoughts. And I would say that when I entered psychiatry, I was primed myself. I was in a place in my own life where I was starting to encounter mental health care for the first time in my own life. And so being on that rotation, I was able to connect with people in a way I wasn't able to connect in any other field. I was able to identify with the humans on the other side as the patients while I was, you know, the student doctor at the time. I was able to connect with them in a way that was personally fulfilling. I was able to connect to their humanity, and I was able to use what I was learning in the moment, in addition to my human connection, to help people in that process. And being able to do that over and over and over again solidified for me that this was the field that was right for me, my personality. I enjoy connections on a usual level pre-medicine, but being able to combine human connection with medicine is, I would say, one of the biggest reasons why I'm in psychiatry, and using that to help people helps me too. So
Yes, I
here we
love
are.
that. I love that. And do you feel like, you know, the years that you have worked in this field, it has helped benefit your life in a good way?
Absolutely. In so very many ways. And I try to highlight real quickly, whatever I have to share with people, I have to know first. And so having to know certain things helps me in my own personal life. I crack a joke all the time about when I refer people to dialectical behavioral therapy, for example. I say that I refer people to DBT, but I also use DBT principles in my own personal life. And in fact, like I said, like we should teach some form of DBT to all little kids, because they're tools and skills that we all should have, period, as humans in navigating the world. So a lot of the skills and tools that I use in helping people helps me first. I practice it for myself first. Another way that being in this field is helpful to me is as human beings, we tend to go automatically through life and living things. But when I have to teach someone, I'm teaching myself immediately. So when you brought up self checks, I'm like, yeah, I'm telling someone to do it. I also have to practice it, or, you know, just by virtue of teaching it regularly or discussing perspectives, I'm forced to have perspective in my own life as well. So I also learn from my patients. People teach me things in me teaching. It's not a one-way street. People teach me about things. They give me perspectives that I haven't thought of. And so I then go take something I've learned from someone to go use for myself. So it's a very one and back and forth kind of a field in terms of what we take for it, either as a practitioner or as the patient on the other end. So I love this field. This field, skills, perspectives, patients teaching me in general, and also just gaining perspectives on how life is, right? How can you come to work and, you know, no matter how like awful a day I'm having, I'm meeting possibly someone who's having a much rougher day. And just that perspective in itself is beneficial to me. Of course, I want all my patients to have better and better and better days, but sometimes someone isn't. And so that also helps me personally as well. So psychiatry is a mutually beneficial field for me, at least. And I would say many of my colleagues would agree with that.
I love that because it's a tough field. You know, I've worked in mental health, I've worked at psych hospitals, I've worked alongside different social workers and nurses, and it can be really tough, you know, especially depending on the environment that you're in. So, how do you practice your own self-care in your own personal life? You know, sometimes you have to make sure you disconnect from like have that work-life balance. So,
Mhm.
how are you able to manage and practice your own self-care?
Sure. So, and that is, I won't say a loaded question, but also it's an evolving question. Because I feel like once I find balance, things change again, and I have to
Mm,
adapt and modify and find new ways to find balance in my own life and practicing with the field. So work is work, right? I go, I connect with people in the moment and with them. And especially, I don't work. I work the majority of my work is in an outpatient setting, which is a
mhm,
different setting than the inpatient setting, right? The sickest of the sick are in the hospitals. It's a different setting. There's a whole team of support. On the outpatient setting, it's a leaner support staff. And so you're finding yourself having people, you know, you be the person that people lean on as they go about their day-to-day lives, not in an institution setting, but in their own regular lives. Their challenges, say while dealing with depression and anxiety, but also going to work, dealing with bosses, dealing with their partners,
mhm,
children, whatever other challenges people are facing in their day-to-day living. And so for me, it is highly important that I'm present with the
mhm,
person when I'm with them, but also that when I'm done, I'm able to decompress,
mm,
disconnect from traumas and load and burdens, right, that people
yeah.
have put down. And so I'm not carrying it into my life. And I would like to say I'm 100% successful all of the time in doing that, but that would not be true. Sometimes I'm not,
Mhm,
right? Sometimes I encounter things that are so heavy that I'm taking it with me through the day. So one of the ways actually that I help myself reset is what you've mentioned, self-check. I don't always say I'm doing a self-check now, but I find myself intermittently saying, I'm feeling really low right now. What's happened? And I
mhm,
can say, I can by just pausing and
mhm,
reviewing whatever has happened in my day, what I've heard, or what has happened in my own personal life, I can start to pinpoint, okay, this feeling is connected to either this need of mine or this trauma or this thing that I've taken on from the outside. And then I can actively, cognitively, I'm very big on cognitive work. I'm a
mhm,
like a overthinker, so I'm big on cognitive
mm,
work. So I can help myself say, this is why I feel this way. This is a connection I'm making between why I'm feeling this way and what has happened earlier today, the day before, and I can separate them cognitive, like actively allow myself to say, I feel sad for this, but I don't have to like feel sad for the rest of my day, or at least I can
mm,
allow myself to feel sad, but knowing that that is why I'm feeling sad
mhm,
without it becoming a thing, right?
mm,
Spiraling or getting out of control. So that's one thing, the mental work. Another way is that I try to shut down. And as my role is currently changing. So I'm both a clinician as well as a business owner.
mhm,
And it was much easier to shut down as a clinician, right? Work hours are done, all of the follow-up calls are done. I can say I shut down my work for the day
mhm,
and I want to focus just on my home life. So
mhm,
that used to be easier. It's not as easy now because as a business owner, as long as things are always popping up that need my attention. So one of the work I'm doing now is actually fine-tuning how to also shut down business once the
mhm,
business day sort of is done, so that I'm not getting calls, emails, texts,
mm,
pop-ups, pretty much because as a part of a group, right? Our practice as a group, I'm the final stop. So things that pop up come to my attention and I'm finding myself, I'm trying to make dinner, an email pops up and now I'm
yeah,
looking at it and I'm distracted. My kids want something and I'm not looking at it. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again. So
yeah,
that's part of the transition personally for me that I'm in right now, figuring out how to also wrap up day so that when the day is done, I can sort of table it and focus on and be present where I
mm,
am at home,
yeah,
whether it be that I'm making pasta or helping with homework, shifting gears into that role. That's a personal transition I'm making. So that's why I led that. It's something that's always changing. But cognitive work, being mindful of where I am, taking proactive steps in separating those spheres of my life are things that I'm finding helpful. I know that like self-care, people talk, oh, of course I cannot not talk about exercise. I talk about that a lot.
Oh, yes.
For me, like I encourage different activities that refreshes you to become a part of your daily routine. And for me, when I'm exercising, I'm doing well. I tell everyone, I mean, I guess I exercise for vanity, but I exercise more for mental health,
Me too.
clear my head, to feel calm, the surge of hormones that, things that pop up while you exercise, like, to get the runner's high afterwards. I do it for feel good more now than anything else at this point. So finding what works for you, what is that thing for you that resets you, that helps you feel good, that brings you back into a state of calm, connectedness with yourself. I would say if each person finds that and incorporates that at least daily, or at least several times a week, if not during the week, if not daily, would be part of how a person can reset. I talked about myself because you asked me, what do I do?
No, sure. Right.
But for different people, it's different things that can do that for them. And I want people to get creative and not feel limited, because some people say, well, I don't, exercise is not my thing.
Right.
Whatever your thing is,
Right.
have a thing that I know that when I do this, I feel
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I feel good. I can connect. I can be present. Let that thing be the thing for you, whatever it is.
I love that. And I always ask my clinicians that come on that question, because it also shows that you're a real person, you have real life human experiences, but you also find the time to take for yourself, right? And I continue to always encourage that to everyone, because we all wear different capes and we do different things. I struggle sometimes with trying to cook dinner and be on my phone and watch TV at the same time. And I'm so glad you even brought up just being in the present. And I feel like for a lot of us, you have to learn that. Like, that's a skill to master, just to be here, not there, not at work, and all those different things. And when it comes to mental health, I feel like a lot of times, if you're a person that's dealing with some type of mental health issue, you're not able to discern really what's going on, or what's the prime focus of what's happening. Um, and I want to continue to use my platform to help people try to find that pivotal point, and saying like, okay, this issue is maybe deeper than what I can control, and I may need to seek help. And of course, in the Black community, going to therapy is something that has been shunned upon for years, and it's becoming more common now, more people are talking about it. So what do you think is something that can help people get to therapy more, or just get more engaged while in therapy?
So like, are we talking about like a mindset change towards asking for help? Because what
Yes.
I hear, like, I think culturally in the Black community, we're very much into, I can do that. I don't need to pay anyone to do that. I can do that myself. We're very DIY culturally. We're problem solvers. We're strong people. We pride ourselves in our strengths. And sometimes we forget our humanity, and forget that even the strongest people sometimes need assistance because the load is just too heavy. So what I think, how I try to communicate that is, yes, you're very strong. Yes, you're emotionally, sturdy and stoic. But if you find that you are doing all of the things on your own and you're struggling to still get back on track, it's time to reach out to someone, anyone. I would even say reach someone, anyone first, right? So, because we want to see if we can handle things on our own. That's valid. Check out what you can do. If you're able to self-check-in, if you're able to reset, if you're able to reach out for tools and things that you have, and it helps you reset, great, you're on the right path. However, if it's a series of, feeling like a sinking sand, I think is how I've heard people describe it a lot, where you're trying to climb out, but you're still like in quicksand. And the more you try to climb out, the deeper you're in. At that point, it is kind of foolishness to continue to try to climb out on your own, because you actually, if you think about, if you're in quicksand, to get out, you do need somebody to help you get out.
Right.
And that person could be a different person. It could be a family member, right? I always say, check out, if you have but also family members are a privilege for many people. Not everyone has understanding family members, or not everyone has people who have time to listen to you, or friends. So that's a good start to just air out and putting things out in the open, letting it air out and see if you find solutions. If that's an option for you, if that's not helpful, then seek professional help. I also like to start with spiritual, right? There's that as well. A lot of people are spiritual. They have religious communities with counselors. A lot of counselors also like work in their spiritual communities, like, social work, who also like provides like 2 hours at their church as their own community service. Maybe you can see someone like that, because I'm part of, I'm part of my community. Social community is very cultural, and when people reach out to me, they're like, I need a Christian counselor, and I'm like, a non-Christian counselor can help you too. They're not going to try to unchristian you. You can totally, the principles are the principles, and they should work for everyone regardless of your faith belief or your faith system. So don't be afraid to reach out to a non-faith-based person if that's who's available to you. However, if you have someone who's faith-based, for example, and faith-based is your thing, and you have that shared experience, it adds, it's kind of like salt or seasoning on already, good food. Or, it's not an absolute requirement for therapy to be able to help you to come from your similar background, or to come from your faith base or your social community. Really, every good, well-trained therapist has the basic tools to be helpful. So having that additional shared cultural experience is like icing on the cake. It just it makes it nicer, better. They understand certain things a little better. But if that's not available, please don't be afraid to reach out to someone who's well-trained in general. So there's that. And then so there's therapists and psychiatrists. I would say to get comfortable reaching out to someone. People tell me sometimes, like, they're afraid of a bad fit. They're afraid that they would be judged. They're afraid that someone will not understand them. And I say this, every day we walk out and meet billions, there's billions of people on the earth that we meet that may not identify with us, but we will not know who will identify with us. We don't know who will help us until we actually venture out and try. So I say, finding the perfect match therapist is like dating. Sometimes you kiss a few frogs before you meet the prince. And so I want to encourage people to have that approach as well. That maybe your first therapist will not be your best fit for whatever reason. Either their training doesn't match what you need, or you're not able to connect for whatever other reason, but give it a chance. Go for a couple visits. If it's not right, switch over until you find a good match. It's not I think because the reason we're afraid to even step out is because we make it this very high stakes idea that I'm going out to see a therapist, and what if, and all the what ifs. But if we tell ourselves it's just a meetup, think of it as a coffee. It's not a date. It's a coffee meetup. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You find somebody else and move on until you find the right match. The goal is to, again, connect with someone who can help you out of the quicksand if you already have tried everything, or are trying, and sinking deeper instead of climbing out.
I love that. And that's one of the most common problems that I always hear is like people can't find the right fit. And I went through a series of therapists before I found my current therapist and the one prior. And I was just very grateful for those experiences. Anybody before that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I give up, Because like you said, like you want someone that resonates with you. But for me, like I had to remove all of that and be open-minded. And that's how I got my trauma-informed therapist I have now. And she has helped me transform my life in some of the most magnifying ways ever. And I'm gonna always promote people like just to at least try, right?
Yeah.
And even with trying sometimes, I know I've heard a lot of people say, even like this time now, they're on waiting list, and they want to see maybe like a Black therapist, and that's not accessible to them at that time, and they don't know what else to do. And I know that I've heard you speak before about offering other alternatives during the course of your treatment to your clients. What other things could you offer to people if they're in a space where they can't get to a therapist right now, but they can start doing some of the self-work with themselves?
Okay, so there's a few things, and what I would recommend will depend on the individual person and what they feel capable of at the moment, depending on where they are in their treatment. But there are things that are complementary and alternative that we can do. could be challenging to start, right? The starting part, oftentimes for a lot of people, is the challenge. But once we're in motion, we're more likely to be in motion. Movement is like a big one. It's oversaid, everyone says it, but I feel like it's hard to really get the impact of it until you implement it. And the harder part is implementing, because if for someone who's feeling depressed, for example, it's hard to move, it's hard to get going. And so asking someone to go to the gym, it feels like a Herculean task. But maybe you don't have to go to the gym. Maybe if you love dancing, maybe it's putting out one of your favorite CDs, playing it, just even listening to the music, bobbing your head, can really shift your mood, maybe to a point where you can feel like you can get up. So I love just the simple, obvious things like the playing music, playing calming things, dancing on the spot. A lot of people love dancing. A lot of people from like our culture can really enjoy like some form of music or movement, with dance. So if that's what you can do, turn it on. Do that in like your little, whatever corner of space you are in, that's accessible for most people. And if you're feeling up to it, you want to walk in the neighborhood, which then includes getting some sunlight, especially if you're doing during the midday. So walking outside, getting some sun. If you have an animal, a pet, engaging with them, engaging with other humans. Like, for example, people who are depressed tend to want to isolate some more. However, the treatment actually is an engagement with people. I understand that people may not want to connect, especially if you feel like the people around you may not understand or are toxic or whatever, make you feel worse. But maybe even a stranger who you don't have to talk to, but engagement with humans help us feel good. Those are like short bursts of feel good in the moment. And if you're able to incorporate routine and structure are a big part of feeling better. Once we get to a point where we can feel like we can do that. So setting up structure, which includes sleep. I never ever talk about feeling well without talking about sleep. A vast majority of people I see are not sleeping well. And many times if we fix sleep, we can fix everything else. Fixing sleep can be as simple as setting a structure to sleep. I'm going to go to bed at XYZ time. And if you're able to, and some people say, well, I'm just going to lay there for a few days, allow yourself, know that you're doing it for a purpose to try and fall asleep, because it's hard for your mood to be good if your sleep is not structured and routine. Like if you're feeling depressed, you're not the one to be sleeping at whatever hour, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever. So I would say address sleep, whether it be with structure, whether it be with medication, whether it be with treating underlying sleep disorders, right? A lot of people don't sleep and they think it's normal when it's in fact they have sleep disorders. Sleep apnea is very, very common, especially if you're like a certain body mass, neck size. What happens is that people are not getting adequate breathing and oxygenation while they're sleeping, so their body keeps waking them up, and so they're not sleeping. They slept, but they've not slept, and so they wake up very tired and cranky. Like when you're tired, you have less energy, less patience for everything. You're irritable through the day. I like, so sleep, I would say, is my probably sleep and movement are my first two things I ask people to start looking into fixing on their own. And I want to encourage people, there are resources online and in several places for self-help. So even if you're not with someone yet, those are things you can start looking at. Then I talk about cognitive work because a lot of the things start up in our mind, like what we do, our thoughts and our feelings are connected to what we do. So tweaking one in that cycle helps us tweak the other. And so whichever one is most accessible for you to tweak first. It's much easier to tweak our action than to tweak our thoughts. Because I would say, I think most people feel that way. It's easier to stand up than to sit and think and think and think. So, so if you're thinking, oh, I'm so awful, I feel sad, I feel down, I wish I would be able to, if you can and then you lay in bed, right? That's the action with feeling depressed. You're laying in bed. But if you can tweak the action and say, let me just get up and look out the window. If you're able to do that, it might then help you out of the thought funk in a reverse kind of way. So there are a lot of cognitive, small self-help type books on Amazon that, not Amazon, but out there in the book fair. No, I have nothing against Amazon, but I don't like to market, but online, that people can look at. self-help books for like, CBT, cognitive work, that can kind of help people do these things on their own if they're not working with a therapist yet. It doesn't replace a therapist, but it kind of sets you on the path of making adjustments for yourself. Self-care things is well talked about, but for many people, it feels like just yet another thing to do. Now I have to find time on my busy calendar to go get a massage or get a spa or get nails or polish or whatever. But actually, if it's something that you enjoy and it's not a burden for you, those things are helpful. Now, if it's going to become another task that's going to make you more irritable and angry and tired, then I'd say don't bother with it. So there are those things. There are alternative complementary things as well. Meditation I feel is accessible to most people.
I love meditation.
They're available on apps. You can even do free ones on YouTube. There are lots of like sounds, like, like aside from meditation, but sound like treatments like that. If you Google sleeping sound is very common, but like sounds to quiet your mind. They're like people who put these things out there for free, like either on YouTube, Spotify, or one of those listening apps you can use. Let me think a little bit. What am I leaving out? I'm probably leaving a bunch of stuff out, but those are the things that come first to mind.
No, you actually you raised a lot of good alternatives. So thank you for that, because I didn't even think of sleep. Honestly, I deal with my own sleep issues off and on, but like I didn't know that it's really common for people to have sleep apnea. So like the field that I work in, I do see that within a certain age range, but I wonder if like there's a correlation between like mental health and sleep apnea, maybe.
I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would definitely say, just in my own like practice, I do end up sending people for sleep studies a lot. Especially if they screen positive, like, typically if you're of a certain body mass to height ratio, if you have like, thick neck circumference, those are some of the things. And if you snore, so one big telltale is like a heavy snorer. So those are, I think, if those three things are present, it's probably worth looking into why sleep is poor.
Okay. Interesting. So I know that probably like educated somebody, because it definitely educated me, because I always thought sleep apnea was around snoring. Like you said, like that's what I always thought, but never knew it could have a possible correlation with mental health. So thank you for that information. And everything that you offer as alternatives as well. And again, that's just alternatives, and it doesn't replace the fact of actually going to see like a therapist or possibly a psychiatrist,
Right. It's things to do in the meantime while you try to match with someone. And to maintain, right? If you're feeling better, those things help you maintain too.
Yeah, and having like a good routine. That's one thing that I'm working on in my own life, is like staying with a structured routine. I'm a structured person, but sometimes things happen, I fall out of routine, and it takes me some time to get back on track. And I realize when that happens, my mind is like all over the place.
Yes. And routines are constantly changing, right? Like your job changes and now you have to change your routine. You have a new person in your life, a new pet, a baby. Again, you have to reset your routine all over again. And life is constantly changing. I think it's part of the challenge is allowing ourselves to stay flexible and mobile to then incorporating that into a calendar again. Like, what's life going to look like again?
Right. And with things happening in, society and life changing for different reasons for many of us, how important do you think that a person's environment can influence like their mental health?
Oh, very, very much so. I mean, there's a reason a lot of people there's a reason a lot of people feel lower mood as it becomes fall and winter and we lose sunlight. There's a lot of reason a lot of people avoid certain people in their lives. Our environment are a big part of how we feel. Again, how we feel is reflected in our internal state, but our external environment impacts our internal state a lot more than we sometimes are aware of. Who we're with, who we're engaging with, right? You could be sitting and having a happy day and someone, flips you off and like
burns you up.
Right. So that's something completely outside an external and part of the environment that's now changed how you're feeling in the moment. If you let it, if you let
Mm-hmm.
it. But like, immediate response could sometimes be a change in mood until you're like, nah, I'm not gonna let a stranger kind of mess with how I'm feeling for today, and let them go and release, and I'm gonna feel good.
Right.
Um, sunlight. Winter. There's a thing, right? It's finally labeled in the DSM seasonal affective disorder. As we lose more daytime and things get darker, a lot of people are at work before the sun is up, and they don't come back home until after the sun's gone. So people miss sunlight for several days. We definitely know that there's an entity now, seasonal affective disorder, where people have depression specifically relating to winter. So we know that not having consistent sunlight affects some people's mood to a point of depression as well. So that's the environment. Critical negative people. I know that a lot of people with anxiety that I meet with are people whose parental voices were highly critical. It's not right. It's not great. It's the 100%. And so there's a lot of, people who grow up in that kind of environment, for example, become hypercritical, right? Because we forget the voices we have. Our voice is made up of all of the voices that were critical in our growing up years. Our first voices, when we're thinking in our head, we think we're thinking in our head, but really the voices that we're thinking of are the voices of our parents or our parental figures, if they were in our bio, but whoever our raised us, our first voices are their voices. This isn't good. This is where we get our ideas as children about the world, about what to think about things. And many of us go into adulthood without refining those voices. And so that's part of our environment. And some of the work we have to do in anxiety and self-criticism is undoing those voices and say, no, I don't want to adapt that thinking or that judgment or that whatever that is as part of my own thinking. I want to decide my way forward. But a lot of people are not aware of that and carrying those voices around. And so they're like in deep anxiety, nothing feels good enough. If I don't have everything speak and span, then I'm less than human or less than or not worthy. And so that's part of our environment too, right? Where we got that from and incorporated into our internal environment. So part of the work in therapy is also sweeping that back out and and replacing it with new voices, new ideas, new thoughts that are our own that we want for ourselves. Not just like fake positivity, but saying, who do I want to be? What are the standards I want to set for myself? Why? How does it fit into who I want to become? And setting that as our own new voices. And unfortunately, it's not one decision that changes all of it, right? It's constant work to continue to say, I'm hearing, this critical grandma's voice again, sweep. What is my voice? What do I want my primary adult voice to be and standards, and how do I want to go with that? But again, that's on some, relationships, encounters, and environment, and how it affects us internally and affects our overall mental health.
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing it up, because I know I've spoke a lot about that before, about just like the subconscious minds and different things that we've picked up through the years from other people and society, what society tells us we should be as a woman or a man, and how to handle things. And as you said in the beginning of the conversation, we're looked upon to be so strong, so we think we could take on all of these things just because, and not have any other resources or guidance that can help us along the way. So I think, at least for me, this conversation was very insightful, because it's letting people know, and myself too, that like we're human and it's okay to ask for help. And asking for help doesn't necessarily always have to be like going to see like a spiritual counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist, but starting doing the self work yourself. And then if you still need some additional assistance, then let me go and get some other, mental health assistance. And I think the encouragement from like people like you that does this and that genuinely cares about the clientele that you serve, it will open people's minds to be like, you know what, okay, maybe I will try this. That's at least my hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And also letting people know not every psychiatrist is sucky. Every time I go on psych TikTok, I'm like, oh man, this is awful. Like not every encounter is going to be sucky or awful, and even finding, so you can leave and move on. We have the power.
But you know what? And I think from just having conversations with people around this, a lot of people think that when you talk mental health or you go into therapy or whatever, people are going to automatically throw you on medication. And a lot of people, like,
Mm.
and I have talked about my experience with medication. I refer to myself in the past as a lab rat. Like, I have been on, yeah, girl, I've been on a number of things because at that particular time in my life, we had to really figure out what was going to help stabilize my mood and my
Mm.
depression and
Mm.
help me get to the point of getting calm before I can work on the next problem.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
try, I try to educate people that some psychiatrists don't necessarily just throw you on meds, but they want to help get you stabilized and get those feelings and things under control so we can try to work through whatever else
Those
is
things.
going on,
Right, right. And that's a fair critique of psychiatry I've heard from a lot of people. Unfortunately, psychiatry moved from being a very therapy-based field to a
Mm-hmm.
biological field
Mm-hmm.
where it's gone. And this is not, this is a systemic societal thing that I can have a whole rant about
Mm-hmm.
on its own, but it has to do with insurance initially, not covering mental health care, and now it is, but it's not getting paid for well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so psychiatry is shifted from a therapy base and a life solutions base to a medical base where it's all medicines. But we know that when we're dealing with the human and the brain and the
Mm-hmm.
mind, it's not one or the other. It's
Right.
all of it. And
Right.
so, but the fallout or how things turn into psychiatrists throwing pills at people is that now instead of having time to talk to people, psychiatrists have, like, especially if you go into a very busy clinic, 5 minutes, 7 minutes to talk to people. So problems that should be addressed with talk, with solutions, with in other kinds of interventions, just get like boxed into a DSM diagnosis and a
Mm-hmm.
pill to match. In a
Mm-hmm.
very like computer, based way, as opposed to let's look at you. Okay, this thing that you feel bad every day, but a medicine is not going to fix that, right? And so that's, I think, where the disconnect is. And my hope is that more and more people practice in a way that continues to honor the age-old, premise of psychiatry, of how it should be addressed. Really, there are some things that medicines can fix. Medicines will fix that. There are some things that medicines are not going to fix. These are the other solutions that will fix that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, I worked with someone recently who had abandonment, and so anytime their partner say something remotely unpleasant or critical, they fear that that person's going to leave them, and
Mm-hmm.
so they have a terrible day, and they do all kinds of horrible things to themselves. Medicines are not going to fix that. This
Yeah.
is deep work to fix
Mm-hmm.
the injury of being abandoned as a child. All of
Mm-hmm.
the medicine in the world is not going to fix that, but to help this person sit through therapy so that they can work through that pain and deal with it and bear it, maybe we can give them a little bit of medicine to help them temper down their reactivity,
Mm-hmm.
all of the bad feelings that feel unbearable to the point where they do things that are harmful to themselves and the other person.
Mm-hmm.
We can use medicines to help them tolerate
Mm-hmm.
the feelings in the
Yeah.
moment until they can do the work emotionally
Yes.
to heal the pain,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
injury. And then once we're on that side, we can say, hey, we don't need these meds anymore, or they're not, we can cut them down. That is the natural progression. That should be what treatment is like. Unfortunately, I know that that's not what everyone's getting out there. So I totally
Mm-hmm.
get it why when people are like, they're just going to throw meds at me. It's because people are leaving out the other piece of the pie,
Mm-hmm.
that should be there, or not explaining, look, I'm just giving you this med because you're having this reaction. The pain is at 100. This is like a pain med for you so that you can limp and do your physical therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once your wound, your cast or your bone heals, you don't need the pain med anymore. We
Mm-hmm.
can transition on that end, or something like that. I think there's a lot of people that get caught in that basket where they just even need meds to transition to do
Yeah.
the work and then feel stable and then cut things down.
Oh, I love how you brought that full circle and explained it because somebody had to say it, and I love I've heard you explain it like that before in other segments and interviews that you've done. So thank you for offering that on my platform, and I hope that someone takes that and like, okay, let me try this, because it doesn't always mean that I'm going to go on tons of medication. Therapy doesn't necessarily mean medication either.
Right.
And like we talked about, there are other alternatives that you can do while you're receiving therapy. And I think that's so important that you brought that up. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for this conversation. I truly do appreciate it. My last question that I ask everyone before closing out everything is, if there is someone that's listening right now that is struggling in their life, they're on a personal or a healing journey and they're just struggling to find a way, they may be in quicksand a little bit. What is some words of encouragement or advice that you can give them right now?
I would always just say that things get better. Things can get better if you give it time and
Mm,
get the right help. Second word is you don't have to do it alone.
mm,
If we should be alone, I think would have been maybe created on individual planets alone. There's probably enough stars out there for us to have one each to ourselves. We're in a community of people as humans, and so you never have to go alone. Reach out, reach out. And because mental health is all of our health, and mental illness is very common, or mental disruption, there's probably someone you already know who's going through something, even if it's not what you're going through. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone, to a community for help, because chances are very high, the same way you're hiding, they're hiding. And
mm.
how beautiful would it be if you're like, hey, look, I'm having a rough day today. Like, me too. Or me too last week, but this is what I did to get me out. Suddenly you're not alone anymore. Suddenly you can see that your problems or what you're feeling has solutions and interventions. Imagine all the beautiful things that can happen if we allowed ourselves to not walk the path alone and reach out to someone. So you're not alone, reach out, and things do get better.
Yes, I love that. And thank you so much for that. Can you please tell everyone where they can find you on social media? If you have anything special that's coming up that you would like people to attend, where they can tap in with you at?
Sure. So I do a lot of my speaking and sharing on social media, Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram is dr_Bolanle. That's BOLANLE. And as well as on Facebook, it's just Bolanle.a. It's my, I share a lot of my thoughts and conversations like this on those platforms. For our practice, if there's anyone, we're psychiatry practice, but we always, connect people to therapists, because I really do believe in the wholesome approach to mental health treatment. If there's someone who needs a psychiatrist still, you can reach out to our team at brightmindsnd.com. That's BRIGHTMINDS.com to reserve or request an appointment. And we providing virtual service at least throughout New Jersey and New York.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bolanle. Like I said, I appreciate this. This conversation filled me, and I hope that it motivated or encouraged someone else to do some more self work or just go get help. Like you said, we're not alone, and we don't have to fight these quiet battles alone.
We do not. We do not. Thank you so very much for having me. This was fun to talk about.
Sure, not a problem. All right, y'all. Did y'all enjoy Dr. Bolanle and all of her words of encouragement and tips that she brought today? Because she brought it. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bolanle, for coming through to Chronicles of a Virgo podcast and for dropping your expertise and all of your encouragement our way. I truly appreciate you and all the work that you and your team is doing. And I hope that you guys continue to do the amazing job and to just help conquer this mental health environment. Again, all Dr. Bolanle's information will be listed in the description box below. So if you're someone that is seeking support that lives in the New Jersey or New York area, please by all means reach out. Or if you just want to tap in with her on social media, her social media and links will be below. All right. Overall, I hope this conversation was a pivotal point in someone's life that may be in a space where you are seeking mental health support or you are just dealing with the daily struggles of life and trying to find balance. The overall theme for me from this conversation was that we are all human. We all have good days, we all have bad days, but that does not necessarily always mean something is wrong. Sometimes we just have to readjust our schedules, our plans, or even our life and just try to figure out a better path to navigate. But overall, there's not always something wrong when we think it is. And in cases where we may be tackling a whole bunch of roles and carrying a whole bunch of baggage, it is okay. Hear me loud and clear. Look at me in my eyes if you're watching me on YouTube. It is okay to ask for help. And it is okay to not be okay. And it's okay to admit that you're not okay or that you need help. I think, and my hopes for everyone is for us to move away from this facade that asking for help or even being a person that needs some support is some kind of weakness, because it's not. It is not. Okay. So until we can reach that mark, that mark as a community, as a culture, and just overall, just know that there are people out there that truly do care, and that there are other ways of navigating mental health other than medications. Because I know that's a big thing for a lot of people, because it was for me on my journey. Okay. So there are other ways that you can navigate daily life. Dr. Bolanle listed a plethora of things in this conversation. So if you missed them, rewind it back. Go check it out, see what she said. Otherwise, just open your mouth and say something. Okay. And although I know that sometimes it can be hard for us to talk about things that hurt us or kind of put our feelings to words, just know that somebody out there is waiting to hear from you, whether you think of it or not. People are in these roles for a reason, okay? And sometimes it takes a few times to find the right person to talk to if you're looking for like clinical support, but just know that you're not alone, and you do not have to navigate these high waters or life alone. I don't care what nobody told you. You don't have to. It takes community, okay? So I hope you guys gain something from this episode. Please, by all means, wherever you're listening, let me know what you think. Whether you comment on social media, let me know what you think about the episode. DM me, or you can either email me, chroniclesofavirgo22@gmail.com. Follow me on social media, Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast, on my social media platforms, Twitter, as y'all like to say, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever your preference is. And definitely come subscribe to our YouTube channel, because I got some videos up there for y'all to check out as well from previous episodes. But overall, please find balance. If you need assistance, please reach out, DM me. We can find and navigate some resources together, okay? No one should have to navigate life by itself. So again, thank you guys so very much for supporting me, my platform, and for tapping in with this episode. And yes, please remember, guys, to take care of yourselves, but most importantly, take care of each other. Peace out.